Scary graveyard, the real event that terrified a town. The figure crossed the road without touching it. That's what the dashcam showed, something thin and pale sliding in front of the patrol car at Summit View Cemetery, almost like fog holding a human shape. The officer's headlights cut right through it. For a heartbeat, the shape turned, as if it had a face. Then it was gone. The radio crackled, the brakes squealed, and the car's front tire stopped inches from the iron gate. The camera kept rolling. The windshield reflected red and blue, but there was no one standing there. Only the empty gate, the dark trees, and the old graves beyond. The microphone picked up a sound that did not belong to engines or radios. It was a whisper, thin as paper. "Don't leave." Officer Jenna Price didn't breathe. Her partner, Officer Mark Alvarez, said her name twice before she answered. The clock on the dash read 12:17 a.m. The air outside was the kind that held its breath too. No wind, no bugs buzzing, just silence stacked on silence. Behind the fence, a gravel path shone like a river under the headlights. And in that path, fresh footprints appeared. Not a full line at once, but one print, then another, pressing into the stones as if made by feet no one could see. They walked forward 10 steps, then stopped halfway to the nearest stones. No more prints after that. Just an ending that made no sense, in the middle of the road, in the middle of the night. "Rice," Alvarez said. He sounded brave, but his mouth was tight. "You're seeing that?" "I'm seeing it," she whispered back. Her hands were shaking on the wheel. "Tell me you hit record." "It's recording," he said. "It's all recording." The whisper returned, closer this time, as if it were inside the car instead of out by the gate. "Don't leave." Jenna reached for the door handle, not to step out, but to be sure it was locked. The hand still clicked softly under her fingers. When she looked up, the empty path had changed again. A little farther beyond the new footprints, a shape stood between two low stones. Pale, still, tall as a person, thin as a shadow. It didn't walk toward them. It didn't turn away. It only stood there like someone waiting to be recognized. Somewhere in the trees, a bell chimed once. Summit View had no bell. Jenna blinked hard. The shape thinned, wavered, and faded back into the dark. The camera kept watching. The path kept shining. The air felt colder inside the car than outside. Alvarez whispered, "If this is a prank, it's a good one." "It's not a prank," Jenna said. She didn't know how she knew that, she just did. "Call it in." He lifted the radio. "Dispatch, Unit 12 at Summit View. We've got..." He stopped. "What do you say when you don't have a word that won't sound silly on the tape later?" He tried again. "We've got an anomalous figure in the roadway and unexplained footprints heading into the cemetery. Requesting supervisor on scene." The radio hissed, then answered with a calm voice that didn't know what they were seeing. "Copy, Unit 12. Supervisor en route. Time 00:19. Jenna exhaled and finally let herself breathe. She glanced at the rearview mirror. For a split second, the mirror didn't show the back seat. It showed a white oval where her face should be, as if someone were sitting behind her. She spun around. The back seat was empty. When she looked at the mirror again, it showed only the fabric, the headrest, and her own eyes, wide and bright with fear. That was the top of the hill, the place where the town's story tipped. In the days that followed, everyone would talk about it. The video, the footprints that stopped in the middle of the path, the voice the microphone caught. People would pick sides, camera glare or ghost, mist or something else. But before this, the video spread. Before the arguments, before the late-night radio shows, and the tripods set up by the iron gate. There was just a quiet town in Oklahoma, a cemetery older than anyone living, and small strange things that people tried to shrug away. Months earlier, Summit View had been the kind of place kids dared each other to bike past after dark. Guthrie is proud of its history, and Summit View is part of that. Civil War veterans, pioneers, families from the 1800s with names that still appear on street signs. The headstones sit on a hill with trees that listen. In daytime, it's peaceful. In summer, the grass smells warm and sweet. Names and dates stand in neat lines. People leave flowers and flags. It is a place for remembering. At night, the air changes. The wind turns thin. Sounds carry too far. The town's security patrolman, Earl Whitman, knew the feel of it better than anybody. He was a patient man with kind eyes, 62 years old, who'd spent a lot of nights driving those roads, checking gates and fences. He didn't scare easy. He could tell you which houses had porch lights on timers, which dogs barked at shadows, and which creaks were just the old water tower shifting. The first thing that bothered him wasn't a shape or a voice. It was a smell. Earl said it was like wet iron and old leaves, the kind of smell you get under a house when the earth keeps its damp too long. He noticed it in late spring, near a cluster of unmarked graves in the northwest corner. The ground was uneven there. Some stones had broken in half and sunk. A few plots had no stones at all, just grass and dips, like someone once tried to fill holes and didn't finish. Earl parked and walked the fence line. The smell got stronger. He stood there for a while, listening to nothing. Then he went back to his truck and wrote it down in his notebook, because that's what he did with things that were strange but not trouble yet. The next week, a teacher named Linda Green, who doubled as the town's part-time historian, led a daylight tour for a group of fourth graders. They read names, handwritten lists from a long time ago, names missing, plots unmarked, a note about a fever that moved fast one winter. She brought the page to the town office and showed a clerk. The clerk nodded sadly. "We don't have markers for all those," she said. "Families moved away. Some never had the money for stones. Some were buried in a hurry. It was a hard season." Miss Green took the page back to the library and made a copy for her files. She didn't talk about it to the kids. When the weather cooled, a group of paranormal investigators asked for permission to do a single, quiet night with their equipment. The town approved, as long as they stayed by the main path, kept noise down, and didn't cross into old plots. They set up EMF meters and digital recorders near the northwest corner where the ground felt wrong. The meters ticked up once, then twice. An investigator asked a simple question into the dark. "Is anyone here?" Later, when they played back the recording at home, they heard a whisper under the static. A skeptic would say it was wind. A believer would say it said stay. The video that changed everything was not from the investigators. It came from a police car just doing a loop past the gate like they always did on quiet nights. When the dashcam caught the pale shape and the footprints that stopped, the story didn't just belong to Guthrie anymore. Phones buzzed, people shared links. The newspaper used careful words, purported, appears, allegedly, but ran the images all the same. The city asked the department to release a statement. The chief said they were evaluating the footage and following up as needed. The follow-up brought more midnight checks and more careful reports. Jenna Price didn't want to be the town's ghost officer. She had worked hard to be a steady, by-the-book patrol cop, the kind who writes clear reports, treats people fairly, and goes home with a clean conscience and tired feet. But the video put her at the center of a story she didn't ask for. Kids at the coffee shop whispered when she walked in. A teenager asked if she was famous now. She said no, bought her coffee, and tried not to look at the wall-mounted TV playing the dashcam clip on loop. Her partner now, Michael Alvarez, made jokes to keep it light. "If I see a lady in a white dress, I'm switching to day shift," he said. Jenna would smile and shake her head. "If you see a lady in a white dress, you're writing the report." They kept coming back to Summit View because that was the job. The cemetery didn't cause trouble. It just asked for attention. One night, a week after the video, they parked by the gate, windows down, radios quiet. The moon was a thin slice. The trees stood tall and still. The gravel path inside the fence looked peaceful and empty. They listened until their ears ached. They heard the town far away. A train horn, a dog bark, a truck on the highway. The gate kept its secrets. "Tell me something normal," Jenna said softly. "Nachos," Alvarez replied. "Baseball, laundry." She laughed a little. The sound blew away some of the cold. Laundry is the scariest of those. Tell me about it. He was about to say more when a soft knocking came from the fence. 3 taps, slow, like knuckles on iron. Tap-din-a-tap-in tap. The sound came from the left, near the old elm. They both turned their heads at the same time. The elm's shadow lay long across the road. No one stood by the fence. The knocking came again. Tap, tap, tap. They stepped out of the car. The night touched their cheeks and made them feel like they'd stepped into a refrigerator. Alvarez clicked on his flashlight and swept it across the fence line. The beam slid over iron bars and old leaves, then froze on a small, strange thing. A single white stone sitting on the lowest rail, balanced like a coin, on an edge. It wasn't there earlier. It shouldn't have stayed upright. But somehow it did. While they watched, it tipped off the rail by itself and fell to the gravel. That. Jenna's skin prickled head says, to her toe. She picked up the stone in her gloved hand. It was ordinary, smooth from years of rain. There was no paint, no marking, no trick wire. She set it back exactly where it had been. It rested there for a breath, then slid off again. Tap. Okay, Alvarez said, voice thin. That's enough science for me. They locked the gate, checked the perimeter and left, because sometimes that is the bravest choice. Leave, write it down, come back with a plan. The plan came from a simple place. Have more eyes. 2 nights later, the supervisor joined them with another unit. 4 officers, 2 cars, 4 body cams, 1 spare dashcam mounted on a tripod pointing at the gate. They stood quiet on the roadside shoulder and listened to nothing. The sky kept its stars. The wind kept away. The gate kept still. After half an hour, the air changed. Not warmer or colder, just closer the way air feels before a storm when nothing has moved yet. The tripod camera tilted her hair to the left as if someone nudged it with a fingertip. The supervisor walked over and adjusted it back. As he stepped away, all 4 officers heard footsteps in the gravel just beyond the fence. 1, 2, 3, then nothing. No prints appeared. No shape formed. Only the memory of the sound and their own quick breaths. The town kept living. Daylight held small routines. Kids went to school. Trucks rolled down Division Street. The bakery sold glazed donuts and rolls. At night, people shut their blinds earlier. A few said prayers they hadn't said in years. A local radio host did a call-in show about the video and asked people to be kind to each other, no matter what they believed. For an hour they were. On a cool Friday, Ms. Green met Earl at the cemetery in daylight and walked the northwest corner with him. She showed him the old list with missing names. He showed her the patch of ground that felt wrong. They didn't say, i.e. the word haunting. They said respectful and careful and history. They left a little bouquet on the grass where no stone stood. The wind lifted a corner of the paper wrap and then laid it back down like a hand smoothing a sheet. Jenna kept working. She told herself she believed in what she could hold. Keys, reports, the weight of a flashlight. But she also carried a new feeling that didn't fit in a pocket. It came most at night, when she returned home and set her keys on the table. She would hear a noise in her empty apartment, like a cup shifting in a cupboard, and she would hold very still until the noise didn't come again. She did not talk about that part of work. Another week passed, then another, and the calls slowed. Maybe people were staying away from Summit View after dark. Maybe whatever had moved there was tired of being watched. The officers still drove past. The camera still watched the gate. The path still shone when headlights touched it. The trees stood and listened. On the last night of the month, Jenna and Alvarez pulled to the curb at 12:03 a.m. and shut off their engine. No other units were with them. The town fell asleep all the way through. The sky was clear and hard with stars. 15 quiet minutes, Alvarez said. Then coffee. Deal, Jenna said. They sat and listened. A moth tapped the windshield once and vanished. A train far away laid down a long, low note and fell silent. Their car clock glowed soft green. 12:09, 12:10, 12. The whisper came back at 12:12. So light, it could have been the air moving between 2 teeth. Don't! Jenna and Alvarez looked at each other. Neither of them had moved or breathed or touched the radio. "Leaf," the whisper finished. It came from the passenger side window. It came from inside. Alvarez reached very slowly for the switch and rolled the window down an inch. Cold air slid in, so nothing else did. He rolled it up again. The whisper didn't repeat. The clock changed to 12:13. Jenna flipped the dashcam's view to the live screen. For a long blank minute, it showed exactly what they were seeing. Gate, path, stones. Then the image bent a little, like heat over pavement. A pale thin shape rose at the far end of the frame. It did not walk the path. It rose as if the ground were lifting it up. It turned, not fast, not dramatic, just turning, like a person deciding which way to go. And then it faced the camera. At the very same second, on the gravel path beyond the gate, 2 brand new footprints pressed into the stones where no one stood. Then 2 more closer. Stones clicked and settled. Dust lifted. Step by step, the prints came forward, 15 feet from the camera, 10 feet, 8, 6, then stopped right at the fence line in front of the iron bars. The last 2 prints were inches apart, toes pointed at the gate, as if someone was standing there, breathing. Jenna's breath hitched. She felt that strange cold again, the kind that starts at your throat and slides down. Alvarez whispered, "You seen this?" Before she could answer, every phone and radio in their car lit up at once. The dash radio blinked. The MDT screen flashed to the login page and back. Their body cams chimed like they had just been turned on again, even though they were already recording. In the soft bundle of sounds was one extra thing, a bell. One single clear chime that seemed to come from under the ground. The iron gate moved. It did not swing wide. It shuddered against its chain like someone on the inside had pressed it with one hand. The chain held. The bars trembled. Then the gate went still. The prints at the fence did not fade. They stayed, fresh and pressed deep, pointing at the only people there. Alvarez swallowed hard. "Price," he said. "We should back out slow and call the supervisor." Jenna nodded, eyes locked on the prints. "You call, I'll..." Her words cut off because the whisper spoke again, not on the air this time, not through glass, but right next to her ear, as if somehow, and I had leaned in from the empty back seat to say it. The voice was softer than before, tired and certain. "You came back?" Jenna turned toward the sound on instinct. For one raw second, she saw the passenger side mirror show 2 people in the front seat, even though there were only the 2 of them. Her own face, pale and shocked. Alvarez, eyes wide. And behind them both a third pale shape seated where no one sat, only the hint of a face, smooth as paper, turned toward her. The mirror breathed white and went normal. The shape in the mirror was gone. The prints at the gate were not. The bell note faded into the trees. And then, for the first time since the video, something new happened. Something that made every hair on both officers' arms stand straight. From the far side of the cemetery, deeper than the northwest corner, deeper than the old elm, a second set of footprints began to press into the gravel, smaller than the first, lighter, heading not toward the gate, but toward the cluster of unmarked graves. They were moving fast. Jenna reached for the door handle without thinking. Alvarez grabbed her wrist. "Don't," he said, voice breaking. "Not alone." "I'm not," she said, and stepped out anyway because the smaller prints were headed straight for the place Ms. Green had shown her on a daytime walk. The hollow ground where names should have been and never were. The cold rose around her like water. The iron gate rattled once, as if warning, as if asking, as if telling. She clicked her flashlight on. The beam hit the path and jumped when her hands shook. The smaller prints were still forming, one after another, quick like a child running. She took one step toward the gate. From somewhere inside, a voice that was not a whisper anymore said her name. "Jenna." The light in her hand flickered and went out. The gate chain slid down the bar with a sound like a slow sigh. The lock hit the gravel and rolled to a stop at her feet. The gate began to open. Story to be continued. Stay tuned.